All right, get ready to dive deep into the psychology behind optimizing that Shopify checkout process right here on Conversion Bible.
Yes, that's right.
But first, a big shout out to Growth Suite for powering this deep dive. They've got this amazing app on Shopify that helps you run those super smart discount campaigns.
That's right. Yeah,
And you could even try it out for free. Just head over to the Shopify App Store.
definitely check them out.
Now, I know a lot of you are probably already familiar with like the basics, the nuts and bolts
Yeah,
of, Shopify checkout, but today we're really going beyond that surface level.
absolutely.
We're going to be talking about getting inside the mind of your customer, really understanding those psychological barriers that can actually make or break a sale.
It's interesting because even when someone absolutely loves your product, their brain can still, throw up these roadblocks at checkout.
Right.
And if we don't understand kind of what those roadblocks are and why they're happening, then we're really leaving money on the table.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where this article, The Psychology of Shopify Checkout, How to Optimize for Conversions, comes in.
Absolutely.
This article it really is like a roadmap to understanding why a whopping 70% of shoppers abandon their carts.
Mhm.
That's a terrifying statistic.
It has a big number. And one of the biggest culprits is something that I think we've all experienced,
Yes.
in our everyday lives. And that's decision fatigue. Imagine you're at the grocery store, maybe after a long day, and you're just staring at this huge wall of cereal options.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly, even just that simple choice between, Frosted Flakes and granola just feels completely overwhelming.
Totally. Decision overload is real. But what does that have to do with my Shopify store?
Well, think about all the choices, right, that your customers have to make during that, online shopping experience.
Right.
The product, the color, the size, the shipping options, payment methods.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. It all adds up. It all adds
Yeah.
up. By the time they reach checkout, their brains are already fried, Even just filling out a simple form can feel like climbing Mount Everest at that point.
So how do we combat that decision fatigue in the checkout process?
Mhm.
Do we just offer like one product in one color with one shipping option? I mean, is that the solution?
Well, that's one way to do it, but probably not the most practical or profitable.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Instead, we want to strategically simplify.
Okay.
And it might surprise you actually how many Shopify stores offer this just dizzying array of choices for things like shipping methods or gift wrapping options.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen that. Yeah.
And studies show that by limiting those choices, those less critical choices to just 2 or 3 options, you can actually see a significant lift in conversions.
Okay. So sometimes less is more.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the number of choices, right? But it's also about how those choices are presented. Remember, we're dealing with people who are already, potentially feeling a little bit overwhelmed, so we want to make things as clear and easy to understand as possible.
Got it. Now, the article also mentioned some other psychological barriers like risk perception and commitment anxiety. Are we talking like full-blown cold feet at this point?
Not necessarily, but there's this natural, human hesitation to share personal information, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And especially financial information online.
Right.
Especially for first-time buyers. People worry about security breaches, about identity theft, all very valid concerns these days.
For sure.
Imagine you land on a checkout page that looks even the slightest bit sketchy,
Yeah.
No security badges, no clear information about data protection. You'd bounce right off, wouldn't you?
I know I would. I'm very cautious about online security. So how do we build that trust? How do we make customers feel more at ease sharing their precious information with us?
It's all about those trust signals. Think about security badges from reputable companies, right? Like McAfee or Norton.
Yeah, those are familiar. Yeah.
And don't bury your privacy policy, in some fine print at the bottom of the page. Make it clear and concise, easy to find, easy to understand.
So it's about showing customers that their information is safe and sound with us.
Exactly. And it's not just about security, though. It's also about reducing uncertainty in general. So things like clear shipping costs, a straightforward return policy, having, your customer service contact information clearly visible.
Yeah.
All those things contribute to that sense of transparency and trust.
Okay, so it's like the fewer the question marks, the more likely they are to hit that buy button.
Right. And that brings us to to another big question.
Okay.
The eternal debate of one-page versus multi-step checkout.
Oh, yes, the classic conundrum. I feel like I've heard very strong opinions on both sides.
There are strong opinions on both sides. One-page checkout, it might seem simpler at first glance, right?
It would seem like it, yeah.
But if it's just crammed with a ton of form fields, it can actually increase what's called cognitive load. It's like trying to cram for a test, the night before the exam.
Oh, yeah, not good.
Way too much information all at once.
So it's not just about like fitting everything onto one page. It's about how our brains are actually processing that information, right?
Exactly. A multi-step checkout, when done right, breaks the process down into smaller, more manageable chunks.
All right.
It's like cleaning your house room by room, instead of trying to tackle everything at once.
Okay, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
I I find multi-step processes way less intimidating personally.
And there's another psychological trick up the multi-step checkout sleeve, and that's progress indicators.
Okay.
Those little bars that show you how far along you are in the process?
Oh, yeah. I always feel like a sense of accomplishment when I see that bar move forward. It's like I'm making progress.
That's the Zygarnik effect in
Yeah.
action. Our brains, they crave completion.
Yeah.
So when we see that visible progress, we're more likely to stick with it, to see it through to the end.
Interesting. So even those little progress indicators, they can actually make a big difference.
They can because they're tapping into that, that natural human desire to finish what we start.
Right.
It's all about making the process feel less overwhelming and more rewarding.
Oh, that's brilliant. I love that.
Yeah.
But even with multi-step checkouts, we still have to deal with those dreaded form fields.
Yeah.
Any tips on making them less painful for our customers?
Absolutely. You want to think of each form field, right, as adding a little bit of friction to the process.
Okay.
Imagine filling out a form that asks for like your entire life story,
Right.
Just to buy a t-shirt. You'd probably abandon it, wouldn't you?
I know I would, yeah. You're making me rethink my entire checkout flow right now.
It's a common mistake. The key is to be really ruthless, Every field should have a clear purpose. So ask yourself, do you really need their birthday or their phone number at this stage? Probably not.
Probably not. Cut the fluff.
Yeah.
But even with those essential fields, is there a way to make them more user-friendly? I mean, I want people to be able to breeze through that process.
Absolutely. Clearly label optional fields.
Okay.
To avoid any confusion or anxiety, nobody wants to have to, guess whether a field is required or not. Group related fields together logically, so name, address, phone number, all in one nice little section. And pay attention to the visual size of those form fields.
The visual size, okay.
Yeah, because if a field is tiny, people might assume they only need to enter like a few characters.
Oh, right.
And then boom, error message, frustration, and then bam, abandoned cart.
Yeah, no one wants that. It's amazing how much psychology goes into something as seemingly simple as a form.
It really is. And speaking of psychology and design, let's talk about mobile checkout optimization, because that's a whole different ball game.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. We all know mobile shopping is huge these days.
Over 70% of e-commerce traffic comes from mobile devices. But here's the catch, right? Those tiny screens, the constant distractions, they can really wreak havoc on those conversion rates. So knowing how distracted mobile shoppers are, how can we make that tiny screen experience as smooth as possible?
Well, obviously we need to make sure that the checkout process is mobile friendly.
Right.
But what else can we do from like a psychological standpoint?
Think about the context, right?
Okay.
People are using their phones on the go, in all sorts of situations. They might be on the train, they might be waiting in line, they might be, walking down the street even.
Right.
So we need to minimize those distractions, minimize the cognitive load even more so than on desktop.
Okay, so shorter forms, bigger buttons, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Use larger touch targets so it's easier to tap those buttons, with those thumbs.
Yo.
Designed for one-handed operation. Nobody wants to be, juggling their phone and their coffee while they're trying to, enter their credit card details.
Yeah, that's never fun. And what about those mobile payments like Apple Pay and Google Pay? I mean, they seem to be taking over the world.
They are, and for good reason. It's funny, I I used to be hesitant about those mobile wallets, but now I use them for everything.
Same here. Yeah.
It's just so much easier. Is it just me, or do they feel even more secure than using a credit card these days?
No, you're not alone. I think it's a combination of convenience and trust. No one wants to type their credit card number on a tiny screen, you know.
Exactly.
And if Apple or Google are vouching for the security, well then we're much more likely to feel comfortable with it. I think that's a great place to pause for now. But before we do, a quick reminder that this deep dive is powered by Growth Suite.
Absolutely.
If you want to implement some of these psychological strategies that we're talking about and supercharge your Shopify conversions, head over to the Shopify App Store and check out their free trial.
Yeah, you won't regret it.
You won't regret it. We'll be back in a flash to tackle the psychology of visual design and those sneaky little words that can make all the difference. Microcopy.
Can't wait.
And we are back to Conversion Bible. We're just knee-deep in this psychology of the Shopify checkout process. And now I'm actually pretty excited to get into like the visual stuff because let's be honest, looks matter, especially online.
They really do. And visual design, right? It's not just about aesthetics, making things look pretty. It's really about guiding the customer towards that buy button without them even realizing that they're being kind of, gently nudged in that direction.
Okay, so it's like subliminal messaging, but with pretty pictures.
Yeah. Well, not exactly subliminal, but we are playing with those subconscious cues, Take color, for example. Different colors evoke different emotions, and those emotions can actually directly influence purchasing decisions.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of color magic are we talking about here?
Well, think about the color blue, for instance. It's often associated with trust, with security.
Okay.
It's calming, it's reliable, and think about how many banks use blue in their branding.
That's true. It makes you feel like your money is safe with them.
Exactly. They're tapping into that subconscious association. Then you've got green, which is often associated with growth, with harmony, that sense of go. It's a great choice for, proceed or continue buttons.
Okay. Yeah, green is very positive and encouraging.
Yeah.
What about red? I feel like red is a bit of a wild card.
It can be. Red definitely grabs your attention, but it can also trigger feelings of urgency, maybe caution, even anxiety. Mm-hmm. You want to use it strategically, maybe for limited time offers or to highlight some really important information.
So like a flashing neon sign saying don't miss out.
Exactly. And then you've got orange, which is interesting because it often performs really well for call to action buttons. It's kind of like a shot of espresso for your checkout page.
So it's like, hey, pay attention.
Yeah.
But don't freak out.
Yes. But here's the thing about color psychology. It's not just about choosing the right color, right?
Okay.
It's about using contrast to guide attention.
Okay, explain that a little more. I'm a very visual learner.
Sure. Think about your complete order button. You want that button to visually pop off the page, right?
Right.
So if you have a blue background, for example, a green or an orange button's going to create that contrast, making it super clear what action you want the customer to take.
So it's about like leading the customer's eye towards that finish line.
Exactly. Now let's talk about something that's often overlooked, and that's white space. I have to admit I've always been a fan of clean, minimalist designs.
Yeah.
But I never really thought about like the psychology behind it.
I know, same here.
It's not just about aesthetics, right? White space gives our brains a break. When we're bombarded with too much visual information, we start to kind of tune things out. Imagine landing on a checkout page that's just this wall of text and form fields,
Right, it's overwhelming.
High cognitive load, and it sends those shoppers running for the hills.
Yeah, I get it. So white space is like visual breathing room.
That's a perfect way to put it. In checkout design, use white space to separate different sections. So shipping, billing, review, give those form fields and buttons plenty of breathing room. Let them stand out, let them breathe.
It's all about like reducing that cognitive overload and creating that sense of calm.
Right. Exactly. You want the checkout process to feel effortless, enjoyable even.
It should be an enjoyable process.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about color, about white space, but let's not forget about those visual trust signals we mentioned earlier. The security badges, the payment provider logos, the guarantee seals.
Very important.
We need to show customers that their information is safe and that we are a legitimate business.
Absolutely.
But where should we be placing these, like, for maximum impact?
Strategic placement is key. Think about security badges near the payment info,
Okay.
payment logos up top, almost like you're saying, see, you can trust us. And don't underestimate the power of a guarantee seal near that purchase button.
Yep.
It's like a little, pat on the back saying, go ahead, you won't regret this.
It's all about that reassurance, right?
Right.
Reducing those last-minute doubts.
Exactly. Now we've made the checkout visually appealing, but let's talk about the words themselves. You'd be amazed how those tiny bits of text, that microcopy, can actually make or break a sale.
Microcopy, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, think about your call to action buttons, for example.
Okay.
Instead of a boring, purchase button, try something more action oriented, something more personal, like complete my order or get my, and then, the product name.
Okay.
It's almost like you're planting a seed of ownership in their mind, right? Even before they've actually checked out.
It is. It's like you're saying, this is already yours. Just click the button and it's on its way.
Exactly. Using that ownership language, like my or your, can really, create that sense of ownership even before the purchase is complete. And avoid negative framing whenever possible. Continue feels much more positive than pay now, which kind of, emphasizes the money leaving their account.
Right. It's subtle, but it can make a big difference in how people feel about that final step.
Yeah.
Now, error messages are another area where microcopy can make or break the experience. Nobody likes seeing, error messages, but they're inevitable, right? So how can we soften the blow a little bit?
Be helpful, not blamey. Instead of just saying, invalid input, give them very specific instructions on how to fix the problem.
Okay.
So instead of, invalid email address, say, please enter a valid email address.
Right.
Or, your password must be at least 8 characters long. Just clear, concise instructions. And use color and icons thoughtfully as well. Red can kind of create anxiety.
It can, yeah.
Whereas yellow is more cautionary.
Right.
So maybe a yellow warning icon next to the error message instead of a big scary red X.
Okay. It's about guiding them in the right direction without making them feel like they've totally messed up.
Exactly. Now this might seem a bit manipulative, but we can also use microcopy to create that sense of urgency and scarcity.
Okay.
Think about phrases like, limited time offer or only 3 left in stock.
Oh, yeah. It's a bit manipulative, but hey, we're all susceptible to FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. But there's got to be a fine line between, creating that sense of urgency and being like too pushy, right?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. You want to use these techniques sparingly.
Okay.
And make sure that they're genuine. False scarcity can really damage your credibility.
Right. Noted. Now, let's talk about something that I think is a major pain point for a lot of online shoppers, and that's account creation. I personally hate it when I'm forced to create an account before I can even look at my shopping cart.
Oh, I hear you on that one. And from a psychological perspective, that mandatory account creation, it's a conversion killer. It adds friction. It creates privacy concerns, and it just feels like this unnecessary hoop to jump through, especially for first-time buyers.
Okay, yeah, I totally get the customer's perspective, but as a store owner, I would love to get that customer data. So is there a way to kind of strike a balance there?
There is. Offer guest checkout as a prominent option.
Okay.
Make it super clear that they don't have to create an account to buy from you. And then once they've, completed their purchase, you can gently nudge them towards creating an account by highlighting the benefits, things like order tracking or exclusive discounts.
So it's about framing account creation as a perk, not a punishment.
Precisely. You're giving them a reason to create an account without making them feel pressured.
I like that approach. Now, speaking of psychological nudges, the article talks about the power of social proof and the checkout process.
Yeah.
Can you explain what social proof is and how it works its magic?
Sure. Social proof it's this powerful psychological phenomenon where we look to others for guidance on how to behave, especially in uncertain situations. Think about it, if you see a restaurant with a line at the door, you're more likely to assume it's good, right?
Yeah. Or if I see a product with tons of 5-star reviews, I'm way more likely to buy it.
Exactly. And that same principle applies to the checkout process. Seeing that other people trust and buy from your store can really boost confidence and reduce that anxiety for new customers. It's kind of like you're saying, "Hey, everyone else is doing it, so you should too."
Yeah. So how can we sprinkle some of that social proof magic onto our checkout page?
There's a few different approaches. Customer reviews and ratings are always a winner, especially if they're specific to, the product that the person is considering buying.
Yeah, I always read reviews before I buy anything online.
Yeah, most people do. You can also use purchase counters, something like over 10,000 happy customers served. Something like that can really make a difference because it signals that you're a legitimate business, with a track record of satisfied customers.
And I've also seen those little real-time notifications that pop up saying things like, someone in California just bought this item.
Yeah.
They're kind of sneaky but effective.
They can be. They create that sense of urgency and validation. It's like, hey, if it's good enough for someone in California, it's good enough for me.
Exactly. Okay, so lots of different ways to leverage social proof. Any tips for implementing these strategies effectively?
Subtlety is key. You don't want to bombard people with social proof to the point where it feels, fake or annoying.
Right.
Subtle purchase notifications, check out specific testimonials, and trust badges that show the number of, satisfied customers are all great ways to incorporate social proof without being, too in your face about it.
It's like you're whispering in their ear.
Psst, everyone loves this product. You should buy it too.
Exactly. Now, we've talked about, simplifying the checkout process, reducing friction, but what about upselling and cross-selling?
Okay, yeah.
Isn't that adding more decisions and potentially overwhelming the customer?
That's a good point. It does seem kind of contradictory to everything we've talked about so far.
It doesn't have to be. The key is to approach upselling and cross-selling from a place of helpfulness. Don't try to push unnecessary products on people. Offer them things that will enhance their experience or solve a specific problem.
So it's about adding value, not just increasing the order size.
Exactly. And timing and placement are key as well.
Mm-hmm.
The cart page is a great place to offer relevant suggestions, and post-purchase one-click add-ons can also be very effective.
So you're catching them while they're in that buying mood. Exactly. And don't forget about price anchoring. Suggesting items that are a relatively small percentage of, the main purchase price can make that add-on feel like a no-brainer.
Right. So if they're buying a $100 jacket, a $10 pair of gloves seems like a steal.
Exactly. Bundle offers and limited time checkout discounts can also, sweeten the deal and make those upsells irresistible.
Okay. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the psychology behind checkout optimization. What else should we cover before we wrap up?
One last thing.
What's the best thing?
Reducing friction throughout that entire checkout process.
Right.
Every unnecessary click, every, unnecessary form field is a chance for customers to say, forget it, I'm out.
Right.
So make it as smooth and painless as possible.
Okay. So how do we create that frictionless checkout experience? Give me the secrets.
Well, first, embrace the power of automation. Enable browser autofill, use address lookup tools to make those forms a breeze. Offer a variety of payment options, including digital wallets, buy now, pay later services.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you can swing it, free shipping is a huge psychological win.
Free shipping is my weakness. I'm a sucker for free shipping.
We all are. And finally, don't underestimate the power of clear and concise communication. Display estimated delivery dates, provide helpful instructions.
Okay.
Set those expectations up front.
So transparency is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The more informed the customer feels, the more confident they're going to be in completing that purchase.
Okay, this has been incredibly helpful. I feel so much more equipped to tackle testing and optimization now. Is there anything else we should cover before we move on to that final part of our deep dive?
Yeah, one more thing. While psychology, right, provides that kind of roadmap, remember every store and every customer base is unique.
Right.
What works for one store might not work for another. So how do we know what's going to work for us?
Testing.
Mhm. Exactly. We'll explore the world of testing and optimization in the final part of our deep dive. But the basic idea is, use A/B testing, use heat maps, use session recordings, and other tools to validate our hypotheses and find out what really resonates with our specific audience.
So it's about combining those psychological insights with with real-world data.
Exactly. And don't forget about the post-checkout experience,
Oh, right.
Just because someone has completed their purchase, that doesn't mean that the journey is over.
Yeah.
Order confirmation, abandoned cart recovery, emails, it's all part of creating that cohesive and satisfying experience that keeps those customers coming back for more.
Right. You want them coming back. And speaking of coming back for more, a quick reminder that this deep dive is powered by Growth Suite. If you're looking for a tool to help you implement all these amazing psychological strategies and boost your Shopify conversions, head over to the Shopify App Store and check out their free trial. You won't regret it. We'll be back in a flash to dive into the world of testing and optimization, so stay tuned. And we are back for the final part of our Conversion Bible deep dive. We've really journeyed through the psychology of colors, the magic behind microcopy, and the subtle art of persuasion, all in the name of optimizing that Shopify checkout experience.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has. But now it's time to get down to brass tacks,
Absolutely.
with the data-driven side of things, testing and optimization.
We can hypothesize all day long, right, about what might work.
Right.
But ultimately it's the data that tells the real story. Think of it like this. A psychology, gives us the ingredients. But testing is where we actually perfect the recipe.
I like that. I like that analogy. So we've got all these psychological principles, right, swirling around in our heads.
Right.
Where do we even begin with testing?
Well, start by asking yourself, what do I want to improve? Maybe you suspect that your security badges are kind of hidden in a dark corner of the page, or perhaps your call to action button needs a little jolt of caffeine.
Right.
Whatever it is, turn that hunch into a testable hypothesis.
Okay, so let's say I think adding a progress bar to my multi-step checkout will reduce cart abandonment. What would my hypothesis look like in that case?
You could say something like adding a progress indicator will reduce cart abandonment by tapping into that Zeigarnik effect, that innate desire to complete tasks.
Oh, right.
And then you pick the right testing method to see if your hypothesis, holds water.
Okay, and what would that be in this case?
A/B testing is kind of the gold standard for testing those specific changes.
Okay.
So you create two versions of your checkout page, one with the progress bar, one without.
Right.
And then you show each version to a group of visitors, right? And you track which one performs better in terms of conversions.
Okay. So it's a head-to-head battle between two versions of my checkout page.
Yeah.
May the best progress bar win.
Exactly. A/B testing is incredibly powerful for testing things like button colors, microcopy, the placement of those trust signals we talked about earlier.
Right. What about those other tools mentioned in the article, the heat maps and session recordings? Those sound pretty intense.
They are. Those are your secret weapons, for understanding how people actually interact with your checkout page. Heat maps, they show you where they're clicking, they show you where they're scrolling. It's like a treasure map highlighting those hot spots of interest, but also highlighting those frustrating dead ends.
So if I see a bunch of clicks on an area where there's nothing clickable, that's a sign that something's confusing.
Exactly. Time to tweak the design, time to clarify the instructions. And session recordings, they take it a step further, They actually let you watch real people navigating your checkout page.
Wow.
Like a fly on the wall, observing their every move.
Oh, wow.
You can see where they hesitate, you can see where they get stuck, you can see where they ultimately decide to bail.
It's like getting a glimpse into their soul, or at least their shopping habits.
Right. And those observations can be incredibly valuable for uncovering, usability issues that you might have missed otherwise.
Okay. Now the article also mentioned exit surveys. When would those be helpful?
Exit surveys are your chance to kind of have a little heart-to-heart,
Right.
But with those who abandon their cart,
Right.
you can ask them directly, why they left.
Right.
Did they hit any roadblocks?
Yeah.
What would have convinced them to stay?
So it's about getting inside the minds
Yeah.
of those who didn't convert. I love it.
Well, not everyone will spill their digital guts, so to speak. Those who do can offer some really, really valuable insights into the why behind that cart abandonment.
Okay. So let's say I've run my A/B tests. I've analyze those heat maps and session recordings.
Mm.
I've poured over my exit survey responses. I'm drowning in data. What do I do next?
Look for patterns.
Okay.
Don't get too excited about one-off results, you know?
Yeah.
If you see a consistent trend across multiple tests, that's a sign that you're onto something.
Okay. So if multiple tests show that people are abandoning their carts because they're getting sticker shock, at the shipping costs, that's a clear sign that I need to adjust my shipping strategy.
Exactly. It's all about using that data to guide your decisions and optimize that checkout experience for maximum conversions.
Okay. Well, this has been incredibly helpful. I feel so much more equipped to tackle testing and optimization now. Any final words of wisdom before we wrap things up?
Yes. Don't forget about the post-checkout experience. Just because someone hits that buy button doesn't mean the journey is over.
Oh, right. We touched on that earlier. What should we be focusing on after someone completes a purchase?
Make that confirmation page sing,
Okay.
Reinforce their great decision, clearly confirm the order details,
Mhm.
offer estimated delivery dates, thank them for their business.
Okay. And what about those abandoned cart recovery emails? I know they
Yeah.
can be really, really effective, but the timing always seems so tricky.
Timing is everything. Hit them with that first email within a few hours of abandonment and consider a sequence of, 2 or 3 emails to maximize that recovery rate. Show them what they're missing with a visual reminder of those abandoned goodies.
Right.
And then maybe dangle a little carrot, like free shipping or a discount code.
So it's about wooing them back with a little digital charm.
Exactly. Remember, the checkout experience doesn't end with the purchase. It's about nurturing those customer relationships and encouraging them to return for more.
And on that note, a huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this deep dive into the psychology of optimizing your Shopify checkout. We've covered a lot of ground today, but the key takeaway is this: checkout optimization isn't a one-time fix.
That's
It's an ongoing journey of understanding your customers and adapting to their needs.
absolutely. And if you're ready to put these strategies into action and supercharge your Shopify conversions, Growth Suite is here to help.
Definitely check it out.
Head over to the Shopify App Store and test drive their app with a free trial. Trust us, your bottom line will thank you.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Conversion Bible.